ちは。aps アカデミー講師の上村紅巴です。それでは音読を始めていきましょう。Let's get started. コースを間違えた飛行士。Douglas Corrigan peered out of the window of his airplane. Below, a thick blanket of fog hid the ground from view. Earlier that morning on July 17, 1938, Corrigan had taken off from New York. He hoped to fly non-stop to the West Coast. Flight across the continent was still unusual, and in a plane like Corrigan's, it was a daring venture. Corrigan had bought the plane secondhand. It had been a four-seater built to fly short distances, but he had replaced 3 of the seats with extra fuel tanks and changed the original engine for one with more horsepower. Corrigan had worked diligently on every inch of the plane he called Sunshine. Ever since he had been a boy hanging around the Los Angeles airfields doing odd jobs, he had loved flying. Corrigan had no money and very little formal education. His father had abandoned the family, and a few years later his mother died. By working hard and doing without many things, including breakfast and sometimes lunch, he saved enough money to take flying lessons at the age of 18. Corrigan's dream was to fly across the Atlantic as his hero, Charles Lindbergh, had done. But when Corrigan applied for a license to fly to Europe, the inspectors took one look at the condition of the plane and refused to issue him one. However, Corrigan did talk them into giving him a license to fly non-stop from Los Angeles to New York, and if things went well, to try the return trip from New York back to the West Coast. Things went well. In spite of rough weather, Corrigan made the trip east in 27 hours. He was confident that both he and Sunshine could cross the continent a second time. Spectators gathered as Corrigan climbed into the plane. Few supplies were aboard. Except for a box of cookies and some candy bars, he wasn't taking much with him, not even a parachute. Sunshine was already carrying a heavy load of fuel, so he didn't want any more weight. As dawn was breaking, the overweight plane rose with difficulty into the sky. Within a few minutes, Corrigan and his plane were swallowed by the fog. He soon noticed that one of the compasses didn't work, but he wasn't worried. A second compass on the floor of the plane was set for a westerly course. Corrigan swung the plane around to match the compass setting and climbed above the fog. 10 hours later, he was still flying above the fog. As darkness closed around the plane, Corrigan's feet began to feel wet and chilled. He turned on his flashlight. The floor of the cabin was covered with gasoline that had leaked from the main tank. With a screwdriver, Corrigan poked a hole through the cabin floor so that the gasoline could safely drain into the open air. He wasn't too worried about the loss of fuel. After all, he thought, he could always land if he ran out of gasoline. Hour after hour, Corrigan flew on through the night, following his compass needle. His muscles ached from sitting too long in one position. His gasoline-soaked feet were numb. When daylight came, Corrigan was surprised to see water below him. He checked his compass and realized that in the poor light, he had matched his course to the wrong end of the compass needle. Instead of flying west toward California, he had flown east, out over the Atlantic Ocean. He had no idea how far from land he was. He had no radio, no parachute, and he was running low on fuel. There was only one thing he could do: keep flying and hope he'd reach land before running out of gas. 28 hours after takeoff, he spotted land. At a large airfield, Corrigan brought Sunshine safely back to Earth. He was approached by an Army officer. "Hi," Corrigan said. I got turned around in the fog. I guess I flew the wrong way. He soon found out that he had landed near Dublin, Ireland, and it wasn't long before the whole world knew about Wrong Way Corrigan, the man who flew backward into his dream. 以上、aps アカデミー講師上村紅巴の音読動画でした。次回をお楽しみに。